Well, autism is a superpower.
The gang ain't neurotypical, my bro got autism. She thought he threw up gang signs, it's just my dog Stimmy.
Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name is Luke Radowski here of thebestpoliticalshow.com, and we are going to be going live for the next 2 hours with some really awesome and incredible people here in studio with us, as of course there is a lot of crazy and wild news to get into today. As it's a new day, it's a new dawn, as Donald Trump is talking about shutting down FEMA. Lots of pro-lifers were just released with a new set of pardons, as a lot of the rules surrounding CBDCs and a lot of the kind of draconian crypto regulations are also being recalled as drones are returning to New Jersey. What's really going on here? Well, we're going to be discussing that for the next hour or so, all exclusively for members of LukeUnfiltered.com. As of course, this podcast is later released on YouTube, but it's live for the members that allow us to keep us going and operating as a fully independent media organization. We truly appreciate your support. You guys are a part of the show. You guys could chat. First-time callers as members get also free supplements from WeAreChange.shop, our own store. And of course, we appreciate any super chats, but you guys don't need to do that because once again, you guys are members, and we're going to be reading the chats throughout the conversation. As, of course, we have a lot of great people here. One of them is, of course, Paul Pui. I hope I said that right. I might have messed it up. I apologize if I do. Paul has been kind of a pioneer in this larger crypto space. It's great to have you here. Paul, for the people who don't know you, who are you, and how would you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Paul Pui. I'm CEO and co-founder of Edge. We've been in the crypto space for 11 years, building privacy and freedom tech within crypto. A lot of crypto has definitely gone down a bit of a dark path, especially in this day and age with ETFs being the hot item. We want to make sure people still own and control their crypto and do it in a much simplified way and get a high level of privacy in doing that.
Yeah, I heard nothing but great things about the Edge wallet and
great.
everything you
It's
guys
awesome,
have been doing, and super happy to have you here because we're in this new day where it definitely does seem like this space is opening up and it's becoming mainstream to the point where the president of the United States has his own meme coin. It's a little crazy.
And his wife has their own
and
meme
his
coin.
wife too, and probably his son soon, and his other son, and then his other son. As this is a wild west that is still kind of evolving, but it definitely seems like the Louisiana Purchase has just happened, and it's going to be broadened and opened up that much more. So it's great to have you here because it's going to be important to talk about the future of this larger kind of freedom trajectory, hopefully freedom trajectory that we're all on, that won't let us be decapitated by the technocratic AI robots. So there's that, but it'll be a great conversation. So thank you so much for coming here. Kristen Megan, also in the house here as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Kristen. Who are you for the people who might not know who you are?
Well, I'm not dating Luke, so we'll just get that out there. No, I am an Air Force whistleblower. I am an exposure scientist. I've exposed weather modification. I've exposed the illegal, improper mandates because that's my profession. I hold political figures to their oath, and I'm a loudmouth liberty enforcer. I do a lot of things, and I've known Luke for a long time and basically been in the liberty movement since 2016, and I've been mining Bitcoin since 2012.
Wow. Yeah, that's a long track record there. As of course, we also have Tammy Clark in the house as well. Tammy, I just met you. I tried to do some tactical training with you last night. Didn't work out, but we still had a lot of fun. Tammy, who are you?
Oh, my name is Tammy Clark. I'm an occupational and environmental health and safety professional, an industrial hygienist, an exposure scientist like Kristen, and that's how we met. Together, we have been blowing the whistle on OSHA, government agencies, and the improper, dangerous, and illegal COVID response, and how basically criminal the entire mishandling, I should say, of the pandemic was. So that's how I met Kristen. We work in the same profession, and together we've become known as the dynamic duo around the world, and that's why we're here together today.
And just try to speak a little bit closer if you can. Sorry, the mics, or that mic particularly is a little bit more delicate. We're gonna have to revamp,
I'll
change
kiss it.
Yeah, there you go. There,
You
that's
super
what it is. Already.
But she is also the vice president of the largest grassroots organization in Michigan called Stand Up Michigan.
Awesome. It's going to be good to talk about all the crazy regulatory changes also happening as well. So we'll get into that. Steph, who are you?
Hi, everybody. This is Steph. We are Change, and I am pushing the buttons.
All right, let's get into this because, again, very exciting things are happening with Donald Trump. And overwhelmingly, it is shocking and surprising to see how many larger kind of political victories we're having that is truly coming because a presidential candidate is actually keeping his campaign promises. People don't understand how rare this is because throughout my years in politics, whether it's George W. Bush, whether it's Barack Obama, whoever it might be, they always promised us a bill of goods. They never delivered. Trump looks like he's delivering and doing that much more, as now he's recommending the end of FEMA after he just had a visit to the California wildfire site. As of course, these are some of the statements that he just made that, listen, Trump's a little kind of bombastic here, but let's be honest here. This latest new version of Trump just doesn't give a damn. He's like, what? We're getting screwed here? Wait, what's going on here? No, we're going to fix it right away. He's even, according to a lot of sources, going around and just saying, F it, I'm just going to do this because he doesn't have anyone to kind of appease here. His release of these JFK, RFK, MLK files are huge because they also show a larger representation of something he couldn't do in 2016, but he did now because of this larger new kind of attitude change of saying, you know what? I'm just going to do it, and no one's going to tell me otherwise. And that's why FEMA could actually be shut down. Here's the clip from Donald Trump today himself saying this.
I'll also be signing an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA is not good. I think when you have a problem like this, I think you want to go and whether it's a Democrat or Republican governor, you want to use your state to fix it and not waste time calling FEMA. And then FEMA gets here and they don't know the area. They've never been to the area, and they want to give you rules that you've never heard about. They want to bring people that aren't as good as the people you already have. And FEMA's turned out to be a disaster. And you could go back a long way. You could go back to Louisiana. You could go back to some of the things that took place in Texas. It turns out to be the state that ends up doing the work. It just complicates it. I think we're going to recommend that FEMA go away.
Absolutely. That's just my personal opinion. I might be a little bit biased here, but is this a great decision or the greatest decision? What do you guys think?
Oh, it's an excellent decision because all these alphabet agencies like OSHA, EPA, and FEMA, like what they're designed to do, they are the worst at. They funnel so much money. There's so much waste, fraud, and abuse within FEMA. It's ridiculous. I'm all for it. And there's a friend of ours. His name is Steve Slepcevic. He's done more than FEMA in the areas of North Carolina with the flooding, with the California fires. These very things can be privatized. And when you do bids with the government, you incentivize a better productive form of work and better technology. I also, working for the federal government for 12 years, know that we do not need as many people in these agencies. Half of them work through 1/4 of the day. And if you have that competition, you get that better work ethic. So I'm here for it. I'm like, please let this happen. I want to privatize all these alphabet agencies that are designed to protect us.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Kristen and I have been calling for this even with the EPA as expert witnesses in the federal court case in the East Palestine, Ohio situation. We have seen so much fraud, abuse, corruption with these, like Kristen said, alphabet soup agencies. A lot of them need to be completely dissolved and privatized.
Yeah, I mean, what they did with the Carolinas, with their response to it, is just criminal. It's just absolutely awful. And, clearly it's a big, bloated, bureaucratic kind of institution that works like the DMV, and it's extremely ineffective. And a lot of people would argue created more damage than has actually helped people. As of course, a lot of that money is mismanaged, and it's a lot of money. And if we just had some of that money ourselves to help ourselves, I mean, look at the state of Florida. The state of Florida does incredible, especially when it comes to natural kind of emergencies that they have to routinely deal with. But guess what? After those emergencies happen, the state of Florida is up and running, rebuilding, growing, and fixing all the problems that were just broken. So this larger kind of endeavor, I love it because it just shows us that there actually is someone paying attention to just how awful the government is, and he's going to be able to decapitate it live in front of all of us to see. And I kind of like that. And it's a beautiful thing to see personally.
I like to say that FEMA is kind of like the military industrial complex, but for internal problems within the country. Mm-hmm. So just like the military industrial complex is basically fed by the government inflation, but it's going to the coffers of the people closest to the government. The same thing is happening with FEMA, which is why the money is so mismanaged. They don't care about getting the best deal for the dollar, so long as who they pay are the people that are rubbing the elbows with the government that decides who's going to be able to collect the funds. And one starts to ask, just like the military industrial complex effectively creates wars so that we can channel money into those coffers, are we effectively creating the emergencies, which is another entire rabbit hole, which allows us to then spend money with the entities that are closest to their government officials?
Yeah, most importantly, I think he breaks this facade that there's going to be some kind of larger government institutions that's going to be coming in and saving the day. As of course, that never really happens, but people have this idea, they have this belief that, yeah, the government's going to take care of me, everything's going to be fine. And they don't really do that. They kind of do the opposite of
They
that.
do enough just so that the media can highlight that little bit that they do to keep everyone feeling like they're happy, especially if you're not in that region. If you're in that region, you kind of see what's going on.
Yeah.
But, 99% of the people aren't in the place where an emergency happens. So they're like, okay, FEMA's there. Okay, good. And they feel content, and then they continue to vote for the exact system that's causing the problem.
The situation's under control.
Exactly.
No, the hell it's not. You're on your own. And I think the more people that realize, yeah, I have to take care of myself. I have to be there for my family and my neighborhood and my community because no one else will. I think that larger kind of ideology is important. And he's breaking this larger kind of concept in more ways than one, as it looks like Donald Trump is also bringing back menthols. Yes, you heard that correctly. And getting rid of regulations with flavored nicotine products, which again highlights this larger notion that the government knows what's best for you, as it incentivizes seed oils and soy and high fructose corn syrup and all these other horrible things that they put in our food supply, as they literally allow their friends to poison the food and water supply. But no, those menthols, those are the real bad things that you can't have because we care about you. No, get rid of all of it. And this is yet another move that I think is largely indicative of people realizing, yeah, man, my future is in my hands, and I have to decide for myself what is right for me as an individual, if it's healthy for me, if it's good for me, and just getting rid of a lot of these regulations, I think is awesome.
Yeah, and Kristen and I have noticed that our government agencies and these regulations have become one of the biggest problems and the biggest perpetrators of harm against not just our businesses, but the American people as individuals. And like with East Palestine, the EPA was the greatest cause of harm to these people. It wasn't actually the train derailment that was the problem. It was the EPA's mismanaging, putting people in harm's way. It's OSHA being weaponized against the people during a pandemic, guilty of revisionism, violating their own standards. So all of these regulations, I mean, we have become a nation ruled by regulation, are strangling not just our businesses and our economy, but our individual civil liberties and freedom of choice. And it's all about informed consent. If I want to have a menthol, that should be up to me.
If I want an orange snap cigarette from Camel, I should be able to without having to go to Geneva.
Right.
I would even argue the EPA went out of their way to create tremendous amounts of harm against the general public
Absolutely.
in
Yes,
many
they did.
instances. Specifically, the first, my kind of larger introduction to the EPA was when I was in New York City, and they were telling everyone the air is safe to breathe, even though 2 huge towers fell down that were filled with asbestos. 3 towers, excuse me, that fell down that were filled with asbestos and other horrible chemicals. And they were doing the findings and the studies, and they were testing the air quality, and the air quality came back toxic, deadly. And they were like, oops. We didn't see that over here. They sent it to the White House saying, yeah, guys, this is pretty bad here. The White House was like, you're going to shut up about this. And then Christy Todd Whitman, head of the EPA, who is an individual that, in my opinion, has blood on her hands, came out there on national television and told everyone, yeah, the air's safe to breathe. Don't worry, guys. I had friends down there with ventilators. They're like, no, don't use those ventilators. Don't use those. No, PPE, you don't need that. The government says it's safe. Don't worry. Of course, it wasn't. And then tremendous amounts of people were, unalived, were killed because of that larger kind of lie and decision that was handled by these larger kind of government agencies that once again proved that they're more cruel and evil than they are helpful. So I don't know if you guys have any other experiences with like the, EPA or the government regulatory agencies. I'm looking at you, Kristen, because I know you have your
Absolutely.
experiences.
My whole 23-year career. I mean, the problem is you have these standards that are, so when I was in the military, you can't be fined like through an OSHA citation, or I think the EPA can fine us, but in the private sector, you can be fined by both agencies. But it's the EPA that was guilty of the very things. Like, do you know that government is the biggest polluter? But then the EPA goes after these mom and pop shops for some improper discharge that affects one riri fish. It's like, it's ridiculous. And I think people think if we got rid of the EPA, all of a sudden, oh my gosh, like the world is going to be inhabitable. No, you have people like me who could work in the EPA, but I don't want a demotion, that know what they're doing and have been doing this for 2 decades. There's many of us that would love to come in as consultants and do the very thing and do it better. I mean, I wish that the head of the EPA was in prison for the rest of their life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the biggest challenge with these three-letter agencies is that they are a monopoly. And I look back to different industries that actually have, I won't call them regulatory bodies, but more like review bodies that are independent and privately owned. Before I got in the cryptocurrency space, I was working in the health and wellness space for gyms. And then before that, I actually worked at NVIDIA. And I remember every launch of a card that we had, and because there's no health impact, there was no agency that said you have to do this in a card, but there were about 5 different review sites that reviewed everything we would launch. And that we would live or die by those companies. But if one of them was caught fraudulently posting a review or saying negative falsehoods, then boom, they were dead.
Yep.
And that's effectively what we need in these three-letter agencies. In fact, is competition, and we all know that that monopolies create that level of corruption. So yes, privatize these agencies. Sure, we can still pay them within private funds. We don't need the mismanagement of our tax dollars, picking people that are actually really not looking at the right things that are best for our health.
Yeah, not just that, but then going after people and prosecuting them. I think that's the biggest story here, as there's still a large number of individuals that have had to deal with a larger kind of financial and legal issues because of a crazy runaway government agency that said, no, we're going to ruin you. We're going to destroy your life because you're using this crypto. You're using this Bitcoin. No, you're going to jail, or we're going to debank you. And it's absolutely criminal what happened. As of course, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. I just want to shout out some of the members. Sam Seepel, thank you so much. Talis Hentes, thank you so much. We're going to be probably taking a caller sometime soon. So if you want to call in, let me know in the Telegram chat, and we will be going to you in a few minutes from now. But we also got breaking news that a lot of pro-lifers were just officially pardoned by Donald Trump as well, and were officially freed after the Biden DOJ used the Freedom to Access to Clinic Entrance Act in order to slap felony conspiracy charges against them. As of course, a lot of people were sentenced to some very serious charges, and as you can see here, they are now finally being released here. And this is awesome because this wasn't even a campaign promise from Donald Trump. Donald Trump just kind of did this because he probably heard about this and was like, this is kind of messed up here. When he wrote the full pardon for Ross Ulbricht, he called the prosecutors scum. So I think he's privy to more stuff than we actually know about, as there's still a lot of people in jail right now. There's still a lot of people dealing with some significant legal consequences. Roger Ver is one of them. Ian Freeman is one of them. Joby Weeks is another one. There's been a lot of prisoners, and more importantly, a chilling effect set up in this larger crypto Bitcoin space that hopefully now is over. Is it over? And what are some of the more important cases for you guys with some of these individuals with who potentially Donald Trump could be looking at pardoning next?
Yeah, I mean, just as you mentioned, Joby Weeks and Roger Ver. I mean, I know some information. I think Trump is going to be presented with some facts about Roger Ver's situation. And I just think, again, no victim, no crime. And the government finds anyone who's living freely through, you know, a monetary system. Remember, Bitcoin has been demonized for so many years. Everyone that had Bitcoin was just trying to like buy drugs, you know. I bought hoodies, but
I bought coffee.
I think I bought like an $85,000 hoodie at PorkFest now, if I look at how much it was. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that probably didn't have their story become mainstream in our community. So I hope that there's an advocate for these different people that were targeted for just not bowing the knee to the government monetary system. And I just love how in the process of demonizing this form of freedom and exchange, more coins have come out, more monetary systems have been allowed in private communities. And I can't believe it, but I know that our friend Joby is suing the government, I believe, for what, $255 million?
Yeah, he just announced this.
22.2 billion.
Excuse
so
me.
that's a lot of money there.
Billion.
That's pre-inflation.
There you go. There it is.
Freejoby.com is the website. He's not asking for money. He's just asking people to sign his petition. Freejoby.com is the website. You could see the trailer about his crazy kind of bombastic life there. As of course, this was one of the individuals that actually helped me get to Epstein Island. Not in the way that you think, but in a way to, of course, expose it and to, of course, invade the island and to film everything that was going on. It wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for this guy. So freejoby.com is the website where you guys should learn about what essentially is Ross 2.0 without the drugs. So another very important kind of case here that I think is worth looking at and investigating, since the criminal justice system absolutely has overabused its position of power against a lot of people that were trying to just freely transact with each other.
Now, per what actually Joby said in the video he just released today, it's actually worse than Ross because he had no due process. He didn't actually have lawyers that can he didn't have a court case. They just locked him up, tortured him. All this, of course, based on what he said. I can't validate any of this myself. But if what he says is true, this is easily 3 to 5 times worse than what Ross went through from the viewpoint of actually going through due process.
Yeah,
that part
he's
is
still
the key
waiting.
thing.
He's still waiting for a court date, and this is years and years and years ago. This is 2000 and what is it, 19 that this happened. So we're talking about 6 years, and you're not going to give a man a court case, and he's been through the toughest jails. They released him out on what is it? Not parole. It's not even parole. It's not even,
house arrest.
He hasn't even been sentenced.
He has a hearing, though, I think, for them to put him back in custody, is what I thought was coming up.
Yeah, there was a couple of those cases as well, but again, the prosecution hasn't even kind of come forward here with a court case. Like, at least have the court case and then put him in jail. But you're prolonging this for 6+ years without even a trial. Let the man have his say here, and he absolutely has been denied due process. And again, a truly egregious case here of the DOJ once again going after individuals that were a big kind of larger pioneer in the Bitcoin freedom liberty movement here. Paul, I don't know about what you're seeing, but it definitely does seem like a weight has been lifted. A lot of people are kind of having a sigh of relief, and they're saying, now finally we don't have to go to jail for trying to create and innovate technology and new kind of businesses here in America.
There's a little bit of a sigh of relief, but one of the concerns is, especially with any of the executive orders, is that they can be reversed. So the main thing that we have to see over the next 2-3 years are things that are actually passed via Congress. And obviously Trump is an opportunity, since at least
he has the House.
He has the House. He's got the Senate, which would make anything that he passes much harder to get reversed in the next administration. Because 4 years goes by at the blink of an eye. And I think we can't forget that. And we have to continue to really push for our ideals and beliefs above and beyond just this, being happy about this administration, because it will change. It can and will change. And I think Trump is a rarity. And there easily could be a follow-on within the same party that definitely doesn't believe any of these ideals and won't follow through and will have empty promises, like you mentioned. They'll promise things just to get elected and not push forward with it.
We saw that with some elements of the right, as Michael Knowles kind of came out and was like, why should Trump free Ross? This doesn't make any sense. I automatically responded to that, dude, like, you're falling for fake news. You don't know what's really going on here, or the larger ramifications of what's really going on here. But there is an element of the right that's like, Bitcoin freedom, like,
exactly.
I don't know. And again, I believe those people need to be, of course, informed about the reality of the situation here. But when it comes to larger congressional changes here, what would you like to see as far as the kind of laws being cemented here? Because there's still a lot of issues surrounding regulations and tax issues. Like, how do we deal with this? As, of course, the IRS still hasn't figured it out themselves. They want you to figure it out, and then you're kind of left guessing. And then when you guess wrong on something that they haven't even figured out, they'll still figure out a way to kind of attack you. They've been attacking me. I'm dealing with huge liabilities from the IRS, savelukenow.com, for just existing. And it's something that's very kind of infuriating. It's very frustrating. Getting on the phone with the IRS is also very frustrating. They just hang up on you mid-conversation. That's really fun to deal with. But as far as like moving forward, what kind of decisive actions would you like to see from Donald Trump? What kind of laws would you like to see implemented here?
Well, Roger's case definitely put a chilling effect on the tax implications of crypto. I think there are things that people can do to just be as absolutely safe as possible, right? You could just kind of treat it just like you're trading a stock and file it as if you're trading a stock. So while it's not clear, you can be extremely safe with it. The part that doesn't have a lot of clarity is around software development, right? So the Tornado Cash case, could that ripple effect into developers of Monero? Could that ripple effect just into developers of self-custody apps? And of course, I speak as someone who is a founder of a self-custody app. And would we then have the liability of reporting KYC information for users and having to report how much they've traded or owned and sent and received and blah, 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 blah. That to me is actually the most important piece of, I don't just want clarification. I want that complete unregulated, because there's no really good way to regulate software, because all you're going to do is take out companies like us and drive people to fully open source, hard to use solutions, but you won't actually squash whatever is you're concerned about. When I say you, it's the government. Whatever it is you're concerned about, you're not actually going to squash it by putting software developers, at risk. So that is the number one thing that I would like clarity on, and it hasn't really been talked about to a strong degree.
Yeah, the Biden administration made an announcement about self-custody of cryptocurrencies at just a few weeks ago.
There was an FBI. If you remember, there's an FBI report that used keywords that scared people and said, if you use services that are not regulated, blah 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 blah, and they made sure not to say self-custody or wallets. They just said services, because to the average person, they don't know what a service is. Is it a software app? Is it a custodian like a Coinbase? And so they knew that they couldn't really enforce, at least not at that time, or it'd be hard for them to enforce against software developers any type of regulation. But it had the chilling effect that they were trying to achieve and trying to scare people away from cryptocurrency. Because heck, what actually is a regulated wallet that am I on MetaMask, am I on Edge? Is it quote unquote regulated? And at that point in time, it both isn't and couldn't be.
Yeah.
Paul, you need to put together an industry advisory board, a political advisory board, because Congress is so ignorant, just like all of us are, right? The IRS, this is so new and developing, and I don't even think our congressional leaders, as working with a lot of our congressional leaders as a political activist myself, I don't think they know how.
They don't, and
there are political advisory committees for such things.
There
so
are.
Maybe you
CoinCenter
ought to
is great.
start one.
Actually, CoinCenter already exists, and they're great at that. No, for
Yep.
sure, they would be the organization. Everything they've said is I've generally been pretty aligned with, especially when it comes to self-custody. And so I don't think I need to get involved. I hate talking to government officials. It's just
That's
I'll
the
probably
only way
say the
to
wrong
affect
thing.
change.
All the things you can't say on YouTube there's probably a list that you can't say to a government
Politicians,
official, and
yeah.
I'll probably say the wrong things. And
They're
so,
hungry for that right now, though. I can tell you, I've spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C., in their offices, and they're very open, and they actually want feedback from their constituents and from industry. So as somebody who's a leader in this industry, I'm just going to encourage you. That's how we affect change.
No,
Thanks for thinking that I'm a leader. There's definitely quite a few
Definitely
people that
you
you
are
can
a
tag with the
leader.
word leader, and there's people that I think are more I'd call DC correct that would have already done a great job.
Have you met our president?
Not
No
personally.
political
He's a little
correctness. Yeah.
spicy.
Yeah.
No, the way that this is really going to unfold is interesting, because you make a very good point. Yeah, these executive orders are great, but the first kind of executive order that Trump passed was rescinding all
Another
of Joe
executive-
Biden's
Exactly.
executive orders, getting rid of 80 of his larger initiatives. One of the ones that he didn't get rid of that people are saying he should get rid of is the central bank digital currency one, as it does look like he did sign his own executive order that will ban central bank digital currencies. Now, how does that look? How will that be implemented here? This was always the kind of larger talk of like Davos and other internationalist and globalist elites that are like, yeah, let's centralize our entire money supply. That sounds like a great idea. As of course, the average corporation can't keep any of your data private at all. But yeah, let's all put it up on the let's trust our entire system. Let's upload everything, including every transaction. Yeah, let's set up a social credit score like system. That's all centralized. That to me was just an insane idea. But to me, I think this is a good step kind of moving forward here. I know you have a little bit more experience with this kind of larger concept of central bank digital currencies here, Paul. But what do you make of this executive order specifically?
And so, honestly, I don't have a lot of beef with or without that executive order. And so I think a lot of problems with central bank digital currencies, at least the discussions around them, are that people don't really understand what they are, because there hasn't really been one issued. And from all of the specs of proposals that I've seen, there'll be nothing more than a bank account with the government that allows you to send and receive dollars to and from anyone else that they deem worthy of having a bank account. So it's not really a digital currency. It's not going to be on a blockchain. It's going to be full KYC. It's not like a USDC on a chain, tokenized and whatnot. And so it's drastically different than crypto. It's just another payment method. And so like people have talked about FedNow as being a payment method. And if FedNow were just accessible by anyone in the country and I can send FedNow to anyone else, That's the closest thing to a CBDC that we're going to get. Are you going to be on chain? No, not at all. And so there's an interesting, and I heard this argument online about the benefits of a CBDC. Don't get me wrong, it has a lot of detriments because once you've centralized all of our transactions, especially if they mandate it, get rid of cash, and all transactions are on there and they're fully KYC'd, now the government themselves, without having to tap banks, sees everything that happens. And they can say, stop this transaction, lock up this person's funds. But I argue this thing, they can already do that. If you have money with any kind of TradFi account, the government knows that it happened. And if they don't, they can find out. And if you have money with any kind of TradFi account, the government can lock it up. So what are we really giving them that they don't already have access to? Not a lot. We're just making it more convenient. Yeah. Simple as that. Now, here's one risk.
Sorry.
So one really interesting risk of the existing TradFi system is we have a constitutional right. Well, granted, government does break constitutional laws. We know that already, right? No shocker there. But at least we could try to make an argument against. So we have a constitutional right that the government shouldn't be able to censor without actual a citizen breaking the law. So if you're not breaking the law, you should be able to transfer funds, right? You should freely be able to transfer them to whoever you want, to whoever you want. Operation Choke Point 1.0, right, against guns and bullets, and Operation Choke Point 2.0 against crypto censored transactions, but they did that by nudge, nudge, wink, wink with the banking system, which are private entities and can censor whatever they want, much like Facebook can censor whatever they want. Once it's 100% controlled by the government, they're actually privy to the Constitution, which means that they can't censor. If you are doing nothing wrong and they just don't like guns or they just don't like porn or they just don't like crypto, they can't just simply stop it. So we would actually have, in many ways, a more censorship-resistant payment method for the dollar than we do currently with the entire banking system, because there's no one for them to nudge, nudge. It's perfectly in the clear, hey, we just censored this transaction. Well, great, constitutional rights, I'll take you to court for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the way that they've been able to manipulate a lot of the big banks to do their dirty work, it's pretty sinister and it's pretty awful because it's not just debanking people in the liberty space. It's also in the firearm space, especially specifically with major credit card companies being like, yeah, we're gonna double charges if you're buying firearms, or we're gonna double the fees, or we're gonna document everything and give it to the ATF, or we're just gonna block it all out.
And those payment agencies, they don't want to block this. This is money they're losing. But if it's because the government goes, we're going to extra audit you over and over and over again, stuff that they can do, right? They can do. It's not illegal to do. Yep. But it's that nudge, nudge that is enough of a nudge and enough threat to the payment processors where they'll let us like, okay, whatever you say.
Yeah, same with Facebook when it came to censoring free speech, because it wasn't in their incentive to censor free speech. They want everyone on their platform. They scared off a huge portion of America from using their platform because they acquiesced to the government's nudging and threats and attacks against them, saying, you better censor these guys talking about the origins of this global sickness or else. And then Mark Zuckerberg kind of acquiesced. He was like, I'll do what you want me to do. And now he's trying to be Elon Musk 2.0 in a very kind of interesting fashion here. But one of the things that was really awesome to see, I think this was yesterday, actually, at the World Economic Forum meeting at Davos. Donald Trump was giving his speech, and afterwards he was taking questions. And the Bank of America CEO was there, and Donald Trump just absolutely gave him a tongue lashing, saying, why are you taking conservative businesses out? Why are you denying them ability to bank with you because of their larger political ideas? Bank of America issued a statement on Instagram, which was, of course, very safe because they were able to do it on their story and not face any comments, saying, we don't punish people politically. Yeah, right. Yeah, you do. And everyone was like saying this was absolutely egregious. This is absolutely insane. So I do understand the argument you're making, but I think getting rid of the nudging, getting rid of those government regulators, I think Trump's executive order on making sure government agencies don't ban free speech is a perfect kind of segue to that. I had friends that helped work on that executive order that wrote the language in it in a way where it could be interpreted like, hey, no, Bank of America is banning people from using their bank because they're Republicans or conservatives. Therefore, this is a violation of free speech, and you cannot do this.
No, and funny thing is, though, from the viewpoint of Bank of America being a private entity, they do kind of have the right, without actually passing some kind of congressional change or executive order, they do have the right to censor and not give people bank accounts. And so could we bypass Bank of America and not need bank accounts because we have a CBDC, which then cannot censor people, at least per constitutional rights. And granted, this is a hotly debated topic, and most people in the crypto world and the liberty world would not in any way, shape, or form agree to a CBDC in any way, shape, or form being better. But I do urge people to actually critically think, could this actually improve things? Because there's
no, you
way
make a good
control.
point. No, you make a point that's worth kind of pontificating on.
Mandating it, because as a veteran, you know, I get VA disability compensation, and I thought to myself, like, what if they pay me in that? Don't force people into, you know, that's my thing. I learned a lot from what you just said, but I just think it's more about not forcing it as a payment method through government transactions.
Well, I just think payment methods are forced all the time. Like, as long as the only requirement is that's a dollar, right? That's legal tender in the U.S. But payment methods are forced a lot. It's like, hey, this cafe is like, I only take Visa, MasterCard.
Yeah, but I still pay cash, and I
Or
win
only take
every
cash.
time.
Right, and some will
Right.
say I only take cash. And
Yeah.
so the payment method is to each his
But
own as far as what they want.
Yeah, I think that we're talking about a much bigger picture here, which is fascism. We are talking about not giving the government more control, because look at what just happened with total government control.
I would
And
agree.
the fascist relationship. I mean, truly, we've become a fascist nation. Everyone on the left screams, Donald Trump is a fascist, but they don't understand the definition of fascism. We now have a government that has contractually colluded with big pharma, big tech, the media, and most definitely the medical systems and the banking financial systems. So after what we've all just been through, we've learned a big lesson. We do not want to be giving the government total control. We absolutely do not. The more privatization and decentralization we can possibly manage to take back, the safer we're and the healthier we're all going to
And
be.
I think that's why there was such a war against crypto and Bitcoin, because they saw that as a larger decentralization of their kind of grips of
Yes,
control. And they're like, we can't
absolutely.
control this. We can't tax this. We can't regulate this. People are able to freely transact, just like they can with cash. They're able to
Yes.
do whatever they want, just like you
100
can with cash.
100%.
But they're like, but now all the autistic nerds are in it. It's like they're actually doing really cool stuff with it, and they're actually innovating, and they're actually building, and they're making us irrelevant. And seeing Donald Trump's kind of initiatives here, because it was the Bitcoin community that came to him and was like, look, we have a lot of money. We could support you, but you got to support us, and you got to stop this war against us. Because looking back at the last 4 years, I mean, I've been in this space, the crypto Bitcoin space, for a very long time. And, you know, first it was like this initial kind of boom, and all these, you know, libertarian, freedom-oriented people were kind of propped up. Then the Wall Street investors kind of came in. And then a lot of the Wall Street guys were scared away because a lot of them were debanked. A lot of people behind the scenes, not a lot of people knew this until some industry leaders came out and said, yeah, you had anything to do with Bitcoin or crypto, you would be automatically unable to financially transact within the big banking system within the United States, because they just kind of decreed that, no, you're not going to be doing this here. And that was all this covert form of war where a lot of people got hit. It wasn't just Ross. It was so many people getting hit left and right with audits, with investigations, with denials of services. And it was cruel. It was evil. Looking back, I think it's fair to argue, I don't know if you would agree with me, Paul, but there was an all-out war.
No, there
against
absolutely
this
was.
industry.
And the thing is, like, the irony is we said, don't give government more control. Don't give
Right.
government more control. Guess what? Are the banks actually any better to give them control? So to me, the banks, generally speaking, especially the ones that own the payment methods, Visa, MasterCard, Zelle, those are just about as bad as the government. And so even though they're technically private entities, they have as bad of malicious intent as the government, but because we're not protected by the Constitution from them, they can do worse things.
But the difference is we don't have to use them. If the
Oh, well, true, yeah,
government
well,
is in control,
Try not using a bank and living your life. You're going to live a very
I'm just
difficult
saying,
life without using the
Bank of
banking
America
system.
is one bank that's been exceptionally aggressive. Well, I don't have to bank at Bank of America. Do you know what I'm saying? If the government is in control, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, they denied me from having a bank account. I was like, hey, I want to
Right.
open up a bank
I
here. They're like,
diversify my
you
money.
can't do
It's
that.
not all one bank.
Wells Fargo
Right.
too. I went to Wells Fargo. I was like, can I open a bank? No, like, no, you can't. I'm like, really? Like, are you freaking
Right.
kidding? They're like, sorry, you don't meet our standards. I'm like,
What standards?
I'm like, I work my butt off. You know,
Right.
and it's
Yes.
just absolutely insane that
You
I was
weren't-
even
you didn't
denied.
eat-
throughout
Well,
the
you
last
talk
few
bad
years.
about them. You hurt
You
our
have to eat
feelings.
the
Right.
bugs to get
Right.
an account.
But now this is what I kind of want to ask everyone. Now that this war's over, what do you see the future of this industry? Where do you see it going? Because a lot of people are saying these meme coins aren't the best. I have a mixed feeling about this because I'm kind of happy that Trump did the meme thing because he's kind of normalizing this kind of like Wild West kind of trajectory, this Wild West landscape. Other people are saying, oh, he's just rug pulling. And I'm like, hey, the onus should be on the consumer. And I think this is the larger overall trend here. And I think this space is opening up. How do you see it opening up and how do you see it moving forward is the question that I would ask. Because I have less insights than, of course, you would on this.
So it's a double-edged sword. It is a bit of an embarrassment when you're talking to your normie friends who are talking about crypto and you're trying to talk about the economic freedom that it brings and the censorship resistance and how Trump has been pro-crypto and he launches a meme coin. So the average person on surface level, it's an embarrassment. Long term, the good thing, and I think this is probably what you're alluding to about him launching a meme coin, is he's set the bar and he's put himself as a target, which means that on a legal front, he has to make sure all of those actions are legal or he's broken the law, right? And so that part is positive, but it is a very hidden positive that is hard to reason with the larger demographic of no coiners that you may want to try to get into the crypto ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so double-edged sword is the best way I can say what's happening going into the future. There's obviously the talk of the strategic Bitcoin reserve, which he never totally promised. He made it very vague and I looked at his transcript of what he said at the Bitcoin conference. It wasn't entirely clear. He said they'd look into it, he'd consider it, and he's exactly done that. So he's kept up his promise of not really having a promise. And I think that would be a very difficult one for him to get past, no matter what. Even with like Senator Loomis backing it and promoting it to no end. And at this point, I honestly am not a big fan of us championing governments adopting Bitcoin as a reserve to just hold in the back. I want us actually using it. I've always been a use crypto type of a guy, even though our app is a trading app at this point because it's too early for people to use it. But that's the end I want to get to. And that we don't actually need the government for because I could already be paying people in Bitcoin. I can be paying people in other cryptocurrencies. There's not currently a law against that. And so let's do it.
Yeah, and now you could do it in a way where you won't go to jail for it. So I think we're going to start opening up because we were first talking about, Bitcoin in the early stages. Max Kaiser was like shaking me. He's like, look, you gotta do this. Yeah. And I'm like,
you got my Max coin.
I remember Max coin too, but before Max coin, when Bitcoin was still just a few bucks, he was like, yeah, look, you gotta do this. And I'm like, I gotta fight the globalists. I'm too busy. It's too difficult to figure out. But I was interviewing him and the people who listened on our YouTube channel. You're welcome. Many years ago. But we got some interesting news from Eric Trump that now has officially came out and confirmed that U.S.-backed crypto projects will benefit from zero capital gains tax.
Wow.
So this is big news.
Now, what the hell is the U.S.?
Wow.
This is huge news. So every year that we, under duress, file our extortion paperwork, my husband like freaks out. Oh, I'm going to go to jail. He's like, the capital gains. And I'm like, the government cannot determine your capital gains because if you, depending on which exchange or how you acquired your coin, they don't know what you bought it for. And just because you say someone moved it to Coinbase, they have no idea what you originally got it for.
The problem is they assume the worst.
Yeah, but
They assume the worst thing for you unless you prove
Right.
otherwise. That's what you're paying.
but my thing is you could fight that.
You could fight
Right.
it. You just have to have.
But the
But
paranoia.
an audit is not fun.
So that, I'm telling you, if my husband was watching this, he would probably pop a bottle open because that's been his biggest thing is the gains. And I mean, I think gains tax all over should be eliminated.
But what if you have losses? Can I still file those?
Well, right? Like stocks,
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah, exactly. So it would be. I would see
Right.
people arguing, saying, "Oh, if you don't have to file the gains, that means you're not allowed to file the losses."
Well, that means Ross can claim his 145,100
Yeah,
Bitcoin
Bitcoin.
loss.
Right.
Tax free forever, right?
Right.
It's like, I lost all this money, guys. So
He's got to
claim your losses now before you can't claim your losses, because
Yeah.
I'm sure some people do have losses in crypto.
No, absolutely. And I think, the market was kind of pretty crazy and wild in the beginning days. I think it's coming back to that, and I'm kind of excited about that.
I really want to know whether or not Eric thinks Bitcoin is a U.S. cryptocurrency.
That's true, too.
Like, what the hell is a U.S. cryptocurrency?
What have you been thinking about other countries and their implementation of this? Because obviously El Salvador kind of led the way. It looks like Javier Milei in Argentina is also leading the way as well in this industry as well. Because I think this is providing a lot of opportunities here domestically. I think a lot of really smart, really capable people went to places like Dubai, went to places like El Salvador,
absolutely.
and they left because they saw the writing on the wall. They saw, hey, we're going to scalp you in front of everyone, and we're going to destroy you. But now that's gone. Do you think we're going to have this kind of resurgence?
Absolutely, because I can't name the number of projects I knew that did leave the country, especially in the DeFi world, where they literally were launching a very legitimate, necessary token. And that token wasn't just the shitty ICOs of 2017, or it's a dating app with a token, blah, blah, blah. It's real estate with a token. These are legitimate DeFi protocols that left the country to be able to launch. And that is the kind of thing I'm excited to come back to. And actually, we were looking at launching a DeFi protocol and talked to a bunch of lawyers. It took us 5 lawyers to find one that would remotely take this project. We just ended up not launching.
For
because
people who don't
investors were too
know what
scared.
DeFi is, how would you explain DeFi to them?
So Bitcoin, Ethereum, they let you send and receive money, right? And that's the basic program built into Bitcoin and Ethereum is, prove that you own the key of the sending account, send money to the recipient. DeFi is decentralized finance, means you can now create an entire program that can receive and send money. And that program can do what I call higher layers of the financial stack than send and receive. Like the bottom of the financial stack is value, right? Like gold, to some degree, dollars. And then it's payments, send and receive. Think of what you do with all of the different financial services companies. On top of that, you take out loans, you earn yield, you take out insurance. All of those have some opportunity to be rebuilt in a blockchain protocol such that it has some of the same core benefits of Bitcoin, meaning it's censorship resistant, globally accessible by anyone anywhere in the world. Those are the pieces that people are defining as DeFi. Many of those things, when launched, need a token to govern the protocol, much like Bitcoin as a token governs its protocol, right? You earn it from mining and you get to decide how it changes. And so those projects in the DeFi ecosystem left the US. They just not around at all. And so having that back within the country, having new projects that have hesitated in launching in the country, that's got to have a huge boon to just our bragging rights within the crypto ecosystem. Whereas right now everyone said, "Why are you in the U.S.?" I've got that at least 24 times.
Yeah,
Paul, why are you in the U.S.? Why are you in the U.S.? Well, this is where I grew up. This is where family is. This is where home is, and that's where I want crypto to be.
yeah, absolutely. And it looks like Donald Trump is trying to innovate America as the world leader in crypto and Bitcoin. He's made those public statements, and it's going to be kind of exciting to see if he's going to be following the pathway of El Salvador or Argentina. What do you think about both of those countries and how they implemented their policies?
Being someone that does believe in freedom, I don't think that the implementation of Bitcoin mandated as you must accept it was a good decision. I went to El Salvador in 2021. Went to a conference there, tried to see who could accept Bitcoin, and I actually tried to ban Bitcoin, and most people didn't know how to accept it. It was challenging, just like it was here. Only a handful did, and that was in the major city of San Salvador. So from a freedom point of view, I wasn't for that. But from the viewpoint of the government saying, "Hey, we encourage this. This is absolutely okay. We're even going to airdrop Bitcoin in people's hands," I'm all for that. But just don't mandate it. Just like I don't want people to mandate the dollar.
Absolutely. Anything else you guys want to say about this particular topic before we go on?
No, I just think it's funny that if we, go to the flashback of how Bitcoin was in public opinion. I even had a friend who, for their birthday, like 11 years ago, I gave him 100 Bitcoin, and he was like, "This isn't real money." And now I'm like, "Oh, how much is that Bitcoin?" So it's just funny that sometimes people have to, because it's like I am a former radiation safety officer. And I always say, like, crypto is like radiation. You don't understand what you can't physically see and hold. And I'd
rather have Bitcoin than radiation.
Yeah, I know you do.
Yes, you would.
But I really like seeing how it's a more acceptable, a financial exchange, because it's been so demonized. And that's why when we talked about CBDC, is the very government demonizing it, wanted their own version. It's like they're jealous and they're just trying to hijack the system. So it's just great having you on, because, I'm in the crypto game, but I learn something new every day, and I've learned a lot from you and different perspectives. And I'm just glad to see that the capital gains thing, that I think that is so huge. And I think that's what keeps a lot of people from getting involved in crypto.
Yeah, and your wallet, I heard nothing but positive things about it, especially
Oh,
with the
thank
ease of use and the protections and you being able to have your own kind of private keys. That right there is what a lot of companies don't do out there. A lot of companies are like, yeah, we'll hold them for you. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry.
It's
We'll hold them, leverage them for you, and
it's,
whatnot.
and it's like
Hodl.
but I bet it's probably there's been some kind of challenges with launching and working with this as well, probably.
So fortunately for us, we haven't had what I'd call regulatory challenges. We've had app store challenges, and that is something that, admittedly, those app stores, they are their own entity, they're private, and they can censor what they want, and it is a bunch of like nudge, nudge. Sometimes, who do you know? How long have you been around to get into those stores? And that is easily one of the choke points of the crypto ecosystem, especially because we are so mobile nowadays.
Yeah.
And many of us, not everyone, are on the Apple ecosystem, which is definitely their little playground. They control it.
Yeah.
And so while I'm generally not for regulation, one of the most positive regulations to happen for the crypto ecosystem was actually Europe's regulation on Apple, which said that they had to allow apps to be sideloaded. And that would allow pretty much any app to get put on an Apple phone in the EU.
Nice.
That would be great to come to the US. However, it's that argument. Do we promote freedom, which Apple should be free to do whatever they want? Or do we promote regulation that forces them down a certain path? Now, granted, I have this weird opinion about regulation, which is anytime someone is like, well, I kind of like that rule because it protects us, kind of like Apple going and that it's a regulation saying force them to open up the App Store. But is a regulation good because it is fixing another regulation that was bad? Why does Apple, for example, have such a monopoly and a lot of people are using Apple products? Is it because they build great products, or because they also have just a boatload of patents that prevent anybody from competing? And I think having fair competition is one of the things that regulation has prevented.
I just looked down to see what kind of phone you had.
Oh, I have an Apple phone. I think they do an amazingly great job as far as the absolute user experience, the usability, the
Ease of
performance.
use, yep.
Correct. But how much of that is technology that cannot be used by anyone else? And how much of Apple is using technology that were built by other people, especially in the open source world? I work in open source. Edge is fully open source. People can see and audit the app completely, and other companies could technically borrow or use whatever we've built. So that's to our detriment because they could then build something else and patent that, and we can't use it. The entire world, if it were open source or at least unpatentable, right? If we just remove patents, that would be the number one executive order I would have if I became president. I would say patents are gone. And I get many people who would hate me for that and would argue against me for that. But I will stand by it and debate that to no end, because that, I think, is what is the biggest hindrance to innovation and causes us to have more regulations to protect us against the people that have grown because they have the monopoly, because they have patents.
No, I'm actually with you on that, because patents also are not always ethical, meaning like someone just quickly backdoor stole from somebody else before they could get the patent. And when you have, this is like what we talked about with the private sector, when you have more people that say, whether it's an app or a feature on electronics or something, and it's a patented feature, taking that away makes them cheaper, more greener. You get a better product when it's more people have the ability to profit off of the same thing. So I don't think that's harder to sell than you think. I'll vote for you.
Oh, you will. You might be. I think we might run in the same circles, which would agree with it. But I also run in the circles of people, especially the one industry that I have a lot of friends in is the medical world.
Yeah.
And they're all about the patents. Ironically, they're all open source.
Well, I'm in the medical world.
The medical world is very open source, ironically, but they are licensed open source. I mean, you cannot use my open source code; it's patented, but you can see exactly how I built my drug. And that world, and medical machinery, all of that, heavy amount of patents, and they anchor on top of that.
Yeah.
And definitely nothing that I'm for.
So can people still get your app on the Apple Store and the Android Store?
Apple Android currently not in the UK because, once again, because of regulation. Although we're, trying to work around that and make the argument for our case, and there are other apps that are available there. But yeah, no, Apple Android or direct download, get it right from our website.
Awesome. So before switching over to different topics, there's still so much news about the drones and Russia and Ukraine. We want to tell you about not just investing in crypto and Bitcoin, but your health. That's why you should check out WeAreChange.shop. Cheesy transition plug there, but this is some of the best stuff out there. I did a lot of research into this. I'm big into supplements. I'm big into taking care of yourself. And truly, when it comes to some of the stuff we have, whether it's creatine or fish oil or magnesium glycinate, it's some of the best stuff that I would recommend for a lot of different people out there. And by getting it, you support this independent media organization, as of course Steph works behind the scenes, specifically personally shipping all of your items to you. And again, first-time callers get free supplements as well. Callers are only available through lukeunfiltered.com. But again, this is stuff that I personally take. I give to my own mother. And, you know, a lot of the times you look at the kind of modern food industry and medical industry we're involved in, and a lot of it is criminal. So you got to do your own due diligence. You got to do your own homework. And I started to do that myself. We got a bunch of resources and videos available on WeAreChange.shop. So take a day, spend it, watch the resources, do your own homework, and support us by getting a supplement on WeAreChange.shop. As of course, taking care of your health is now pretty much essential with the larger kind of biological war that has been waged on the average American person. Let's go into our next topic of discussion, and that is the latest kind of crazy geopolitical news that's unfolding right now, as it looks like the President of the United States is involved in a very tricky negotiation that he's doing now between Ukraine and Russia, as there was news today about a potential audit of all the funds that went to Ukraine that I bet would probably incentivize Ukraine to get closer to the negotiation table here, as of course Donald Trump has also threatened to do more tariffs against Russia recently as well. And it looks like there are larger battles at play here to try to end this war, as Trump now is suggesting that Ukraine shouldn't have fought back against Russia, and that this would have essentially been worked out diplomatically if they would have stood down. And Vladimir Putin just made some very interesting comments of late as well, as he just said this about the 2020 Trump victory, which according to him was stolen. And he then went on and said that the Ukraine war may not have happened if he was president of the United States. This is a very telling clip, as it kind of goes and confirms a lot of what Donald Trump has been saying that the corporate media has been making fun of him for. If you remember, the corporate media was like, oh yeah, Trump says the war would have never happened. Yeah, right. You know, well, Vladimir Putin now says the same thing. Here's the clip.
If he had been the president, if the victory wasn't stolen from him in 2020, maybe the Ukrainian crisis that arose in 2022 would have never appeared.
Now, that's pretty a major admission here. What do you guys make of Putin's comments here that confirm what Donald Trump has been saying for a few years now?
Russian collusion.
Yeah, Russia. No, I think that, I don't know. Has he said that before, that he believes that the election was,
Not fair.
basically, yeah. And I think that's big to say. And I have a friend who has been demonized for going to Russia. And there's a lot more I've learned about Putin that I think would trigger a lot of people. But I don't think he is as evil as our government portrays him to be. And I think, our government likes to fund both sides of conflict. So it doesn't surprise me, and I believe him, that we wouldn't have conflict in Ukraine. We wouldn't have the narrative around blaming Russia for what's going on in Ukraine if it wasn't for the Biden warmongering, war profiteering administration.
Yeah, well, Putin is a former KGB agent.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of activists and media organizations and political leaders that do go missing in Russia. So there's that. But overwhelmingly, if you look at this larger kind of mess that we're involved in, this is tragic. And Trump's comments about this at Davos were also very telling, as he was describing just the killing fields, the drones that are being utilized, and the number of people that are dying here that is far more significant. This is insane. And if we're able to end this war, this would also be a tremendous boost to the economy, in my opinion, especially with energy resources. It makes sense.
Unless you work for a government contractor.
Exactly. Unless you work for
which I know a lot of people. Exactly. All the government
Yeah.
contractors, a bunch of them are in San Diego and home base, and most of them are like, are we going to have a job?
Yeah, unless you work for the sacrificers, the human sacrificers out there in the military-industrial complex. Then you're like, oh yeah, this doesn't really look good for my paybook, and pocketbook. But overall, I think this has been a long time coming. I think it's fair to say the people of Ukraine don't want this war. The people of Russia don't want this war. We've been entangled in it. They've been forced into it. And I think it's been far too long. I hope this deal is made soon. And when it is made, I think the onus, just like the peace deal that was just made in the Middle East, will be on Donald Trump making a deal here and leveraging everything. So to me, I think he is working very hard behind the scenes. And to me, him trying to stop this overall death machine that has been started is just absolutely incredible, absolutely critically important.
It is, and world leaders respect President Trump. We've seen that through his first presidency, and his whole MO is to make peace through strength, create peace through strength, and that's exactly what he does. And I was actually so bold as to say we're not going to see nuclear war because neither Putin nor Zelensky want this war. And they both respect President Trump. They both know he's coming into office very soon. When everybody was freaking out saying we're going to have nuclear war, well, yeah, that was a real possibility. But I really had a strong feeling that knowing Putin and his respect for Trump and their previous relationship, he wanted this ended. Both of these nations are bleeding. Both of them, right? And they want this ended. And they know, I think they were both very thankful that President Trump did win this election because he was going to step in and end it. And now they have an out. He's almost giving them a way to save face and get out of it, right? So I kind of saw that coming, and I was bold enough to put that out there that I really did not believe we were going to have nuclear war.
Great, we're going to get hit right now.
They're excited. Yeah. Knock on wood, quick.
I don't have a tremendous amount of knowledge about the history of this war and the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, but I tap into some of what I learned from. Gosh, you got a photo of him on your wall there from RFK Jr. And he really eloquently put it very, very well with respect to at least one moment in time that really triggered the rest of this war, which was when the Minsk Accords were scrapped. And the Biden administration had sent Boris Johnson over to Ukraine to basically tear apart that agreement that was already signed, in effect, and troops were getting withdrawn. And so, in essence, if Trump wanted to end this, he could simply go back to that exact agreement and say, whatever that agreement stated, you guys all agreed to it. Maybe there's some difference because, well, what part of what land is now war-torn? But that's at least a good starting point. Go back to that Minsk agreement, say, this is the land you get, here's where people are, here are the different rules in this agreement. Let's stick with that or start with that, and let's stop the war with this being the base of the agreement.
I think in a perfect negotiation, both sides come out thinking that they won something. But I think with this particular case, both sides are going to come out saying that they lost something. And I think that's going to be the compromise that's going to have to be made. And I think Trump is trying to work that out by putting pressure on the Ukrainians, putting pressure on the Russians, saying, look, guys, this is going to be difficult for you guys going forward. Make the deal. Make the deal about all the unpleasant things you don't want, because there's going to have to be some kind of breaking point here.
So what happens is amends have to be made through Zelensky growing a pair and saying, yes, we had these labs in the wrong part bordering Russia, which gave Russia every right to initiate aggression, because I used to be an ISO certified lab inspector, so I know what was in those labs funded by the U.S. military, which the Biden administration demonized people for admitting it. So that's why I'm passionate about this, and I'm not like pro-Putin, as people will say, but my point is we demonize the wrong people through our media, and if you understood the backstory with these labs, which is what was the catalyst to get this thing going, people in my profession know this, and I'm just done being silent about it. Mic drop. No,
That's right.
I mean, the easy additional thing that he can do is uphold the promise that was made to Russia 20 years ago, which is not move NATO closer. And so if he can mandate that NATO withdraw a lot of the NATO membership from a lot of the Eastern European countries, withdraw the nukes that are literally on the border, on the doorstep of Moscow, that's what we would want, and that's what we wanted in the Cuban Missile Crisis, and it's a reasonable ask. And there's not really a negative effect on Trump for him doing that. I feel like that's an easy negotiation to even make better amends and have them leave us alone.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that, especially now with just how devastating everything is. I mean, the life loss here, we're going to find out later. It's going to be huge. It's going to be astronomical, especially with the advent of drone technology that, according to some sources now, is using artificial intelligence and, of course, using new advancements in that to specifically track people down and take their lives. I've saw a lot of the videos, and they're just brutal, not just in their kind of gory nature, but more importantly, seeing people surrender. People like no firearms, white flag waving on the ground, disabled, injured, saying, "Okay, I give up." That drone doesn't care. That drone doesn't take any prisoners, and it is just evil. It is just ruthless tech that's being used and advanced in that particular theater of war, which definitely is kind of concerning about the future of all the news that we're getting about drones in New Jersey. As of course, it looks like we have a caller, Olivia, that might be joining us very soon. But this story I think is also important as we got news reports today of the drones over New Jersey coming back. As of course, there were a lot of sightings over the east coast of the United States of all these drones. Now, admittedly, there are a lot of false positives here. There are a lot of people saying, "Oh yeah, it's a consumer drone. That's a alien, or it's a helicopter, or it's an airplane, or they're flying with the FAA regulated lights." Yeah, I understand that, but there's also a lot of other reports and a lot of other politicians coming forward saying, "Yeah, there's things that we have never seen before ever." And Donald Trump said, we're going to release the drone report day one. He hasn't so far. He did a public press conference where he was asked about this, and he was like, Susie, let's get on this. Let's release this. Will he? And what are the larger implications here? Because there's a lot of different theories out here that are just fascinating to even just conceptually think about. What do you guys think? What are the drones?
Well, I have thought about this, and I wondered if the reason he did not release this report was just like he always says to the reporters in the news conferences when they are pressing him about what are you going to do and what is your strategy, and he always comes back and says, "I'm not about to tell you that. That is military strategy. I'm not going to give away our secrets and our plan." And so I kind of wonder if the things that are contained in that report are things he now realizes, I can't release this. There's a lot of intelligence here and a lot of national security issues that they have to deal with from a military perspective.
So as a veteran, I've always hated the whole intelligence community because I feel like I am a citizen of this country and the government shouldn't be hiding anything from me in disguise of protecting me when my government is the biggest threat. But even if it was military strategy, what's the threat? We have the right to no threat. We can't keep people safe by pretending everything is great. So if this has to do with some sort of military thing or lost radioactive material or aliens, my point is we should know. But the way that Trump acted before when he wasn't in office, he was saying he implied that they know what it is and it's not that big of a deal and tell these people because you're freaking them out. That's like the vibe I got. I don't know how everyone else took it.
Well, he knows that, and he's been very clearly communicating with people to the point where, it's totally uncouth. It's direct, it's raw, it's real. It just makes the left crazy because, the words he uses, and it's just so direct, and he doesn't have a problem speaking the truth. So it tells me there's something more going on here.
So the interesting thing about saying it's for national security is the number one thing you could say is we know what they are, they're ours, or they're not. No details.
That's
no
true.
no details other than that. Okay, they're
Right.
if they're ours, we know what they are. Don't worry about it. But if they're not ours, then it's there's the concern.
And that's an implication, though, I think people would understand. If
Right.
the president says they're not ours and he's not giving details, at least we know they know what they are, they're on it, they're working on it. It would still give people, I think, some sort of peace.
Well, not only that, but they're going over navigable waters.
Right.
They're over military
Right.
installations.
Right.
Why do we?
Mm-hmm.
I think,
Why aren't we shooting them down if they're not ours?
Exactly. That's what Trump said too. Trump was like, "Why aren't we shooting these things down?
If we don't know what they are and they're not ours,
I've
should
been
shoot
waiting
them down.
for some redneck to do so. If it was,
They're not
honestly-
flying in Florida. They're flying in New Jersey, which again,
Well, there's a lot of rednecks
I
on
was
the
gonna
East
say.
Coast.
Every leftist state has some rednecks.
That's
Yeah, they do.
racist.
Oh.
When you were showing that map, though, the drone location, I thought those were all those mattress stores for money laundering, one at every corner.
That's where they're launching from.
Tucker Carlson has a very interesting theory about this, specifically going on and describing how they could be interdimensional beings, how they could be creatures from inside of the earth or in the oceans. And listen, a lot of people, kind of laugh at that, but we're at a point where 2024 was a wild ride with crazy disclosures. It wouldn't surprise me if we're only going to get crazier and crazier disclosures. So there's some members of Congress that came out and said, no, it's China. Others came out and said, no, it's Iran. Other people came out. It's just people flying their drones. Don't worry about it. But the reports don't add up here. The reports are car-sized drones. There's reports of them transforming. There's reports of them flying in and out of the ocean, like without even facing any resistance, defying the laws of physics. And
See, I would welcome it if they were like Transformers, because Optimus Prime is like that voice.
My hero.
That's
He's
her
so
guy.
hot.
well, that's what the mayor of New Jersey town came out and said here. We have this clip here, and he specifically described transforming like creatures with
Autobots.
that moved from
say that on
glowing.
YouTube?
Yeah, you can say that. Not really, actually. They might get triggered there. We got to be careful here.
They're Autobots. They're Autobots.
Yeah, Decepticons.
Yeah, yes, they're not trendy, woke,
Robots.
eugenicized robots. They are actual robots. We're trying to get in touch with Olivia, that we are calling once again. So if Olivia is taking the phone call as a member, make sure to just pick up, and we will be going to you shortly here. But here's the clip from the mayor in New Jersey saying what he personally witnessed from what he saw himself. And this is pretty crazy.
I've recently been watching and spent some time with the videographer out of Long Island. I mean, he has orbs, these glowing orbs of light on camera that as you watch them right before your eyes, they seem to transform into a mechanical drone. So I've actually watched it myself, where these orbs are glowing balls of light, different blinking lights all over the place. And as it gets closer to you, you actually see it transform into a drone. Whether it's a drone from the beginning and it's being obstructed by bright light, I can't tell you, but it is cause for concern. We have looked at flight tracker data. We don't see any airplanes in the skies. These things are absolutely some kind of phenomenon that's happening just over our homes. We need answers, and we need them quickly.
Yeah, that's
pretty big deal. pretty much of a big thing. Do you guys have your own speculations to what's going on here? Because I listen, it might sound crazy, but I'm leaning more towards the interdimensional aspect here.
I'd say it's the pandemic didn't work, and so I'm sorry. The next
Right.
step.
Project Bluebeam next. PsyOps, everyone. It's of
Next
course,
PSYOP.
we have a shirt on thebestpoliticalshirts.com that reads, I used to believe in aliens until the government tried to make me believe in aliens. And it
That's a
definitely
good one.
does seem that there's a larger kind of concerted effort here to try to convince us of this. As we're going to go to one of our members, Olivia, who is going to be calling in right now. Olivia, thank you so much for calling in. Always awesome to see new callers here. How are you? Thank you so much for being a member. And what is your question for everybody?
So I'm a repeat caller. I'm your caller from South Africa.
Okay. Yes. Now we're finally seeing you. Yes. I didn't see you before.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So I was listening to the chats, and first you guys were going on about Trump, and I got like a lot to say about Trump, but then you guys moved to drones, so you totally like threw my space of mind. And it's more of a statement. I think I've been supporting Trump when just before the inauguration and during, I was like, my throat was like all like, you got that lump in your throat, and I was having like little happy tears chatting to my aunts on WhatsApp. And I'm like, I've been waiting for this for 9 years. So between Trump and Putin, they're like my two favorite presidents, because our president is like ridiculous. But I think my biggest concern is because South Africa is part of BRICS, we've already been threatened with massive sanctions. Like America wants to pull out from us completely. So I'm left with I think many African nations and many nations around the world are being left in a very bad space for being part of BRICS. And, Russia's been supporting us for a long time. So I think I'd be interested to know if your community has thoughts on the kind of larger implications, because it's always been, people have wondered for many, many years, decades for that matter, because my religion is conspiracy theory. Why I've been supporting and so like obsessed about American politics, because what happens in America spills over to South Africa. We have schools now where we have the trans bathrooms, so whatever happens there filters through here. So it's very important to keep up with what's happening. on the Trump side. And then you brought up the drone side, which, you know, the alien thing is like right up my alley too. And I think will be very interesting, Luke, if you ever look into, you must know him, Dr.
I think you're breaking up there.
He's got some phenomenal
say
points.
his name again, because you cut out there right when you said his name.
Sorry, Dr. Michael Sala.
I haven't heard of him.
I haven't heard of him, no.
You have to look into this because I've been following him. He also started this UFO journey about 25 years ago, I think, same time as Greer. And things that they've been not prophesizing, but saying will happen have perfectly come out. And you can actually see it where the drones are different. Some of them are human type vehicles, and some of them are like orbs, where these are different things. And the theory is that it's soft disclosure, where the white hat governments, the anti-deep states, is working with, I'm just saying theory, but please look into Dr. Michael Sala's work, where it's soft disclosure, where we've had all this technology for the past 80 years, since like the 40s, and we can't just go, well, America can't go back and say, well, we screwed you, we've kept all this technology. So the soft disclosure is, well, hey, look, we got something cool and new, like Britain that's just released like UFO type anti-gravity Ubers. Like that's real news.
Yeah, you bring
but
up
it's
a good
UFO
point, because
technology.
it could be saber rattling by a lot of these governments being like, "Look at the tech we got," and there could be conversations happening behind the closed door, being like, "Look what we could do,"
Like a pissing contest.
And
Right.
it's like it's like a wiener measuring contest. Steph, you sent something into the chat. Do you know this person?
That's who our caller's talking about. Dr.
Yeah.
Michael.
Do you know him?
No, I just found that on the internet.
Got it. And as far as the culture stuff, you do bring up good points, because that's, I think, America's #1 export, the culture. And within the last
100%.
the last few years, it's toxic, especially all the horrible DEI stuff and all the horrible degenerate rap stuff that mind warps you. But today we also got new breaking news that Target has officially just announced that it's going to be ending all of its DEI programs in all of its stores and warehouses starting this fall, which just highlights another kind of major cultural shift. I think Donald Trump winning the popular vote is going to transcend the culture in a way that we haven't seen before,
100%.
where a lot of the people who are prioritizing becoming healthy and having good neighbors and having good communities and being the best versions of themselves will rise to the top, as Trump also signed a major executive order getting rid of DEI. He rescinded Lyndon B. Johnson's executive order on affirmative action. That is huge. That's big. That's major. As of course, no longer will you be discriminated against for being white or Asian in academia. So this is huge and big,
It's massive.
and it's going to hopefully ripple through to the rest of the world here. So I would expect some good things to come to the world. Would you guys agree or disagree?
Well, I'm super excited.
100%.
I can now go shop at the Target dollar spot for little gift baskets and not feel like a
Supporting.
leftist. So I'm so excited. There's just so much winning. I don't know what to do with myself. This is like
Right.
I feel happier than a kid on Christmas. Like
I agree.
I don't even know. I'm rarely speechless, and I'm just taking it in because I'm hearing things from, I think we're so busy that we miss the current news. I've been traveling like crazy
Right.
the past like 4 days. And I'm like, oh my gosh, every time I land or get reception again, there's this executive order. It's like Oprah's great giveaway. You're rescinded. It's so exciting.
And it is exciting because, you know, what happens in America, as it goes in America, it goes in the whole world, right? What happens here affects the entire
It
world.
does.
And so to your
It really
point
does.
about being in a BRICS nation, I do feel for you guys because what Trump is trying to do right now is save the dollar. And it is going to hurt those nations that dig in their heels and try to destroy the American dollar. That's what's going on. So if you happen to be in one of those BRICS nations and your leaders are going to dig their heels in, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel bad
Yep.
for
Yeah,
you guys,
Trump-
but at the same time, he's more concerned about America.
Yeah, Trump ended all foreign aid to all countries except for Egypt and Israel, and he just announced that he's going to issue an executive order ending foreign aid to Ukraine. So, big news. And, a lot of that foreign aid is just essentially money laundering anyway, from taking money from poor people here and giving it to rich people in poor countries. That's extensively what it is. Anything else you guys want to say about Olivia's question?
Yeah, so with respect to affirmative action, I'll just like CBDCs, I'm going to throw in the controversial angle here. I've generally disagreed with affirmative action, mainly not because of its original concept, but the way it was implemented. If you look back at the original purpose of affirmative action, it was to take people from disadvantaged backgrounds and give them some opportunity that they may have not had. The problem with the way it was implemented is we just took a race.
Right.
We just said if you're black, then you're disadvantaged, when there are, a fair share of pretty well-to-do black people. Granted, they
in New York
skew.
City, the head of the Department of Education made a comment a couple years ago saying specifically, if there's a rich black kid and a poor white kid, resources need to go to that rich black kid because of generational trauma.
Exactly.
What are you
And that's
doing?
where it went
There's
wrong.
a poor white kid here that needs help. He's not going to get any of the help, but you're spending all the resources just because the person's black? I mean, that's horrible.
This is the challenge, though, is if you think about it, if you're going to actually implement affirmative action the way it was intended, it is resource intensive. I have to evaluate each person one by one, look at their histories, look at what they went through, and then decide what they're worth. That is a hard thing to do. And as humans, we generalize. So call it racism or not, this is something I've just kind of realized over the past 5 years, is that we are one of the only animals in this earth that optimize the world around us. That's what technology is an optimization. Why? Because we're inherently lazy people. We're a lazy creature. That's what technology is 100% built for. Well, guess what? Optimization is another form or another way of describing racism. It's, there's a pattern match that I've noticed. So as opposed to evaluating each person, I'm going to just bucket them into a pattern match. Someone said you're a good person to deal business with. Well, I'm not going to actually evaluate you. I've liked this. I've done good business with this person that referred you. I'll go do business with you. And so this is kind of the unfortunate thing about affirmative action. Had a good cause, implemented poorly, but implemented poorly because of the way humanity operates. And I don't know a good fix for that. But I do feel like there is value in looking at people that have a disadvantaged background and giving them some opportunity. I just don't have a good way to actually implement it.
Well, I think you're talking about it really started as equal employment opportunities, which I agree with as a woman in a man's field. I agree with that. Kristen and I both work in a very difficult field in a man's world, but we have equal employment opportunities now and access. But like you said, it became more about affirmative action, more about quotas, checking a box, and political correctness.
Right.
And so it took away from individual performance and merit-based, and so because of its improper application. So I agree with you 100%, but the only thing we can do now at this point, because the political correctness has taken over with it, is to just undo it and just go back to merit-based employment, period. May the best person, male, female, regardless of race, it doesn't matter. The best person for the job.
Yeah, merit,
win the job.
which Trump
Totally
kind of said
It was
himself.
the gateway drug to DEI. So,
yes,
It
that's
was.
exactly right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lydia, thank you so much for providing us a very interesting topic to talk about. Thank you for calling in all the way from South Africa. It's really cool to have people call all around the world, a part of this independent media organization, which you
late
are.
your time too.
you met our female caller quota. So thank you.
I try hard. It's almost 12 o'clock, 34 degrees here in Africa. It's hot as hell. But Luke, I cannot thank you enough for everything you do. There's not enough words to thank you for everything you do, for putting it out there. So it's an absolute honor to be on your show, and I thank you endlessly. And please give a double treat to Atlas.
You got it. Atlas is dealing with some health issues, sadly, so we're taking care of her. She's in another room. She is not feeling too well, so I'm already giving her a lot of extra treats. I'll give her a little bit more. Thank you so much, Olivia. Thank you so much for becoming a member at lukeunfiltered.com. Thank you so much for calling anytime. It's great to have you. It's great to have people show their face and ask us questions. Really appreciate you. Have a great time there in South Africa.
Thanks so much. Same to you all. Bye. Take care. Have a good evening. Bye.
That was great. So if you're a member, you get the opportunity to do this. If you live domestically in the U.S., we give you a free product on WeAreChange.shop. Otherwise, international shipping just kills us. So this I think was a great show. Thank you so much for providing us so much insight and information here. We're going to do one more segment with Paul. What we usually like to do is we do a 10-minute segment after doing this show, because this show is going to go live on YouTube. it's going to be public on YouTube. It's live just for members now. But then we do a members-only 10-minute segment where we ask you your most controversial opinion, and then we kind of talk about it. And you've had a lot of controversial opinions, which is great. We love the conversation. We love having our kind of our abilities, and ideas challenged. So we appreciate the kind of nuanced perspective that you provided to us. It's really awesome. I think you provide a really great service as well. Before getting out of here, Paul, where can people find out more information about you, and how can they support your work?
If you want to support the work, head to edge.app and try the app out. And the most important thing, other than just using the app, is please send us feedback. We believe strongly in privacy. We're open source, and because we're open source, you can see that we don't track users in the app. We don't track every tap and swipe that you do, which pretty much every Silicon Valley app does. And so we don't know what people run into. So please tell us if you decide not to use Edge, you are actually the most valuable person. If you're like, oh, it's not for me, we want to hear that. So edge.app, and from there, I'm one of the only 2 co-founders that are on the website. You can find my LinkedIn, Twitter, whatnot. Feel free to reach out.
No, I talk to a lot of people within the industry, and they're like, this is some of the best stuff out there. So thank you so much for providing that service for free to the people out there, which I think is important. We got another comment from Sam Seipel saying, I wonder if the target getting rid of DEI is just them rebranding it with a new name as other corporations have. Well, we'll see. And of course, you can't really hide much in today's day and age, especially now with the kind of resurgence of free speech and the end of censorship. He also says, oh no, hope Atlas feels better soon. Yeah, me too. That's been a weighing concern, but hopefully she'll get better soon. Kristen, thank you so much for being here as well. You're also helping Atlas as well.
Yes. So do you want me to give out my closeout?
Yes.
That sounded like I said my closeout. That's not what I meant. So
I thought you said we're not dating. What is this?
Oh my goodness, Kristen.
Well, it's an inside joke from the quartering we did earlier. But so you can follow me on X at Kristen Megan, and on the now saved TikTok, Kristen Megan TV. And please don't go to my website. I'm going to ask you to go to saveluke.com and help my friend.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. As of course, we were doing a show with the quartering. Check him out. He does great stuff too. And Kristen just out of nowhere says, I'm not dating Luke.
Well, someone in the comments.
I'm like, okay, I'm going to double down on this, and I'm going to tell everyone I'm building a harem, and now she's a part of my harem, and then I'm going to be like Elon Musk, and I'm going to reproduce.
Present tense.
Someone thought I moved
past.
in, and I'm your new living, and I was like, no.
So yes, that's very true. As of course, Tammy is here too.
Yes, I am also Luke's new live-in.
There
this
you go.
week.
The more girlfriends, the better. All right.
She does the dishes.
Oh, no. But it's been great to be here. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun. You can follow me at Tammy_K_Clark on X, or at Facebook at Tammy K. Clark.
Yep. And Steph, you talk way too much.
I always talk too much. This is Steph WeAreChange pushing the buttons.
All right, guys. Hope you guys appreciated it. Click subscribe. I think we have one more show with a big player in the Monero community happening Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern. So that's going to be the next live show just for members on LukeUnfiltered.com. You haven't signed up yet? Sign up. It's quick. It's easy. 20 cents a day, and it means the world to us. Thank you so much for watching and participating in independent media.